So, I would like to begin by welcoming Mr. Arletta, Dean of the University of Lausanne, Mr. Hata, President of the Doshisha University in Japan, Mr. Rueg, Dean of the Environmental Geosciences Faculty of the University of Lausanne, Mr. Decoster, Chief of the Development and Communication Department of the City of Lausanne, Mr. Roch, former Director of the Federal Office on the Environment, Mr. Franc, Vice-Dean and Chief of the Sustainable Campus Department of the University of Lausanne, and of course, our dear delegates, member of the organizing committee, volunteers and friends. It's a big pleasure for me to introduce this opening ceremony, and it's also the first time for me that I'm talking in front of so much people, and it's impressive. So, welcome to the 5th World Student Environmental Summit. Thank you. Last year, I was a delegate at the 2011 summit in Sweden, and I remember on the first evening when the organizers said that after months and months of labor, they had the feeling that they were giving birth to a child, which in the case was the summit. Today, I completely understand what they mean and have the very similar feeling. After last year's summit, Stephanie, a fellow delegate from Lausanne, and I were so inspired by the people we met and the energy that was so infectious that we thought, hey, why not organize it in Lausanne next year? So after this, we put together an official application to the WSES, and we were selected. At first, there were just high emotions, and we were really excited and happy. But then the realization also sank in about what is involved in organizing such an event. And here we thought, uh-oh, what did we do? Since then, it's been a year planning, and on behalf of the whole organizing committee, I would like to start the evening by deeply thanking all the people who made this possible and enabled us to be here tonight. The University of Lausanne, not only for its financial support, but also for all the support in logistics that they offered us. Mr. Eiji Hata, President of Doshisha University in Japan, where the first summit was held, and has been a very good support every year since. I also want to thank the Environmental Geosciences Faculty of the University of Lausanne, the City of Lausanne, and all the members of the International Relations Office of the University of Lausanne for all their much appreciated help, patience, and kindness. And of course, all the members of the committee and the volunteers without whom the summit wouldn't be taking place. Thank you. Before I continue, I shall take a few moments to mention the delegates who were not able to join us due to visa issues with the Swiss embassies. This concerns Paul-Alain Nana from the University of Yaoundé, Cameroon, Ami Florette Chikangu from the University of Yaoundé, Cameroon, Pauline Kwame from the Institute of Research in Security and Protection of the Environment, Ivory Coast, Victor Sabo from the University of Lagos, Nigeria, Azadeh Tavakoli from the University of Tehran, Iran. When we began the selection of delegates, we wanted all the continents to be equally represented in order to have many different perspectives within the debates. This is why we are deeply saddened and frustrated that these delegates weren't allowed to join us. We strongly disagree with the decision of these embassies, which remains beyond our understanding. And now I would like to say a few words about this year's theme, Let's Change. So why did we choose this theme? One of the characteristics within environmental issues is the irreversibility of the damage caused. For example, species that once go extinct will never appear again. Resource extraction can often leave sites irremediable. Furthermore, this damage occurs very quickly. This rapid pace requires us to act, and to act now without delay. At the same time, we are rapidly learning new ways of relating with each other and the environment, and how we can have a positive effect on the world around us. In order for this effect to ripple out as far as possible, we believe it's necessary to change the way we operate at the individual, societal, and international scale. The aim of the summit is to exchange ideas on how to effect changes on all these different levels, and to understand and inspire each other. And after the last months of preparation, we are looking forward to start. So now, I'm pleased to introduce you to our first guest of tonight, Mr. Arletta, Dean of the University of Lausanne.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear organizers, dear participants, it's my great pleasure to open the 5th World Students' Environmental Summit, and a great honor to welcome all of you on behalf of the University of Lausanne. I would like to welcome in particular Professor Eiji Hata, President of the Shisha University, the first organizer of the WSES. Thank you very much. You had a long trip to come to Lausanne. We appreciate it, really. I would like to welcome also Dr. Philippe Roch, former head of the Federal Office for Environment, and Dr. Nois Causa of the University of Lausanne. Mr. Denis Descoster, representing the City of Lausanne, the Vice Rector Benoît Frein, and the Dean Jean Rueck. As rector of this university, I have to open many congresses, but this one is very special for me because it's a summit organized by students for students. In this room, you are about 80 delegates coming from all parts of the world. Just this fact is already extraordinary. Moreover, the title of this summit is Let's Change. This seems very simple, but everybody knows that to change is usually extremely complicated. I am sure that the choice to have this important meeting here on the Lausanne campus is excellent, and let me try to convince you that this is effectively the case, because this university is dedicated to environment, and because this university is able to do some big changes. Let me try to explain this, and first of all, to say a few words about the University of Lausanne. The University of Lausanne was created soon after the Middle Age in 1537. At the beginning, it was a small school of theology, then became an academy of theology and of law, completed later by departments of humanities and sciences. The academy became a full, comprehensive university at the end of the 19th century with the birth of the Faculty of Medicine. It is now a modern university which is able to anticipate the dramatic changes of today's organization of academic institutions. As an example, something very special occurred at the beginning of the 21st century. The University of Lausanne decided 11 years ago to close its Faculty of Sciences and to concentrate its activities towards 3 orientations: humanities and social sciences, life sciences, and environment and geosciences. I can tell you that this decision was not easy to take. You may know that in Switzerland we vote on almost everything, and we had to go through a public vote in May 2001 for that decision. It was a success, and the project was accepted. This is quite unusual that a university decides to close a couple of departments, but for a strategic view and not in order to save money. In fact, we were able to maintain our budget and even to increase it because we wanted to develop our strong points. One of the consequences of that decision was that we could create in 2003 a new faculty of geosciences and environment. However, during a couple of years, this strategic move was difficult to admit within the university because some people had the impression that we lost a lot of competencies. But after a while, we all understood that because of this strong and difficult choice, we were really able to develop our profile. And I can tell you that at the end, it was a real success because some of our strong departments became really excellent. So you see that this university has chosen the environment as one of its main part of its profile. And also that for this university, the term "let's change" really makes sense. My second point is that the role of a university is, of course, to create and to transfer knowledge, but also to listen to the needs of the society and to use the scientific knowledge to anticipate the big changes of our time. But sometimes the society or the political authorities expect too much. They expect that science will provide all solutions for all problems. This is not true. This is not the goal of a university, since the solutions of the problems are essentially a question of political choices and of responsibility. However, a university can and must provide some light, explain the real challenges, and give precise information in order to prepare important decisions. Therefore, the University of Lausanne is absolutely convinced that it is very important to develop a serious dialogue between science and society. But this dialogue should clearly avoid to let the authorities imagine that the result of the research conducted in a university are immediately useful. By the way, I don't know what means the word useful. But I know that the fundamental science provides a solid and robust basis for long-term applications. Let me just tell you a real story. The story of the French mathematician Évariste Galois, which may be seen as emblematic of the question I am raising. Évariste Galois was born on October 25th, 1811. And at 16, he was already a passionate and remarkable mathematician. In 1829, he wrote a thesis that he presented for the Grand Prize of Mathematics of the Académie des Sciences in Paris. Also, his peers and professors considered him as a genius. He did not win the prize, and the rest of his career was a succession of mishaps and failures. Thus, he failed at the entrance examination of the École Polytechnique. He was expelled from the École Préparatoire, that was not yet called the École Normale Supérieure, and he was jailed for 6 months before presenting again a thesis for the prize of the Académie des Sciences and failing once again. His problems with these prestigious French schools were hardly compensated by success in his personal life. Indeed, in 1832, he fell in love with a young woman, but for reasons remain unclear, he fought a duel with a man in love with the same woman, and he was killed on the 30th of May, 1832, aged barely 20. However, Galois spent the night before the duel working on his research, and in the morning after he was killed, the manuscript of that night's work was found in the pocket of his coat. Only 10 years later, would the equations on this manuscript be elucidated by the French mathematician Liouville, who presented them to the Académie des Sciences, and only then was Galois' work accepted and recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, this tragic story is a little parable about the usefulness of scientific work. Galois invented a theory that bears his name today and is an essential domain in algebra, but he had strictly no idea what it may be useful for. His theory explains why it is impossible or not to solve polynomial equations. This may sound very nebulous and abstract to you, but I can tell you that today, 2 centuries later, Galois' theory is the basis of coding processes without which we would have no barcodes, no CDs, no DVDs, no banking systems, and no credit cards. All this happens thanks to a completely disinterested act of research of a man that no official institutions found very useful in his time. This story illustrates very well that what we do today will have an impact, maybe not tomorrow, but only in 10, 20, or 50 years, or even in a couple of centuries. Ladies and gentlemen, the objective of your summit is to better understand that it is urgent to accept changes today if we want to be ready tomorrow for the big challenges concerning our societies and our planet. For all these reasons, it seems clear that Lausanne is a good place to host this 5th World Student Summit. And it seems clear that we need people taking the responsibility to prepare the scientific knowledge which will be useful in the future, and taking the responsibility to have a dialogue with the society on these extremely important issues. You will be the actors of this summit. You will take the opportunity during these 4 days to think and exchange ideas with your colleagues, students from all over the world. Your role is to imagine solutions for the future of our planet and to anticipate solutions for all of us. The impact of your discussions and decisions is maybe marginal today, but will certainly be crucial in a couple of years. Therefore, I just have to thank all of you very much to be here in this room for this exciting meeting. You have a great responsibility, but you are not alone. Many people interested in the questions of sustainability are ready to work with you. Even in this university, the strategy of which explicitly includes the subject of your summit as one among its 14 priorities. Let me finish by expressing my gratitude to the organizers of this meeting. They did an extraordinary job to bring all of you here today and to enable you to work hard this week in Lausanne. I would like to thank all the students of the organizing committee and all the helpers. Finally, I hope you'll have a very good time in Lausanne and that you have time to enjoy the marvelous campus of the University of Lausanne, the city of Lausanne, the lake, and maybe the Alps. Thank you very much. Enjoy your stay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arletta. And now I have the pleasure to welcome Professor Eiji Hata from the University of Doshisha, Japan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eiji Hata, the president of Doshisha University, Japan. It has been 4 years since the first World Student Environmental Summit was held at WSES University in June 2008. Students from 15 universities and 12 countries gathered in Kyoto, where the Kyoto Protocol was concluded. Many students from all over the world have gathered here today in Lausanne to participate in the 5th World Student Environment Summit. I would like to thank you all for joining us here tonight. Every year, I am extremely impressed by the hard effort put in by the students who attend this summit. I greatly admire your energy and passion to solve one of the most difficult problems in the world. As you know, a massive earthquake struck Japan in March 2011, and we have been truly devastated. However, your enthusiasm have gained me power to keep fighting this heartbreaking reality. At WSES University, students and staff are committed to cooperating in various activities such as energy saving, reducing greenhouse gas emission, and waste disposal. The World Student Environmental Summit was established as a part of such effort. In this summit, the participating students engage in significant activities that discuss environmental issues to draw up the student proposal. There is a dilemma with high-level international conferences where the participating countries' interests conflict with one another. However, the students participating in this World Student Environmental Summit have the advantage of being free from conflicting interests and constraints of the society and holding the key to the world future as young generation. You shall all recognize that this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and an invaluable experience for your own future careers. So please enjoy and make the best of your experience. It seems as if the press conference held at WSES University in January 2008 for the launch of the World Student Environment Summit were held only a few days ago. I am very pleased to see the progress of this summit held first at WSES University in Japan in June 2008 and then followed by University of Victoria in Canada, University of Tübingen in Germany, but the Blicken Institute of Technology, and this year at Lausanne University, gaining more and more recognitions throughout the world. I am determined to continue working on further development of this project by listening to the participants' suggestions and ideas, and hope it will make truly effective contributions to our future society. I would like to extend my appreciation and respect to the team of students who have worked hard to organize the summit, as well as to all the participating students and faculty members who have gathered here in Lausanne from all over the world. It must have been a hard task for you to prepare for this summit between classes and examinations. Lastly, I would like to conclude my speech by extending my deepest gratitude to the President of Lausanne University and to the President of the participating colleges and universities who have sent their bright and intelligent students to Lausanne. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hatta. And now I'm pleased to introduce you to our next guest, Mr. De Coster, from the city of Lausanne.
Thank you very much for your invitation and welcome in Lausanne on behalf of the city of Lausanne, which I represent. A few words of presentation, introduction. Lausanne is the fourth city of Switzerland and capital city of the Canton of Vaud, which is one of the 26 states that compose Switzerland. The city of Lausanne has four main axes of promotion and development. The first is that Lausanne is Olympic capital. Olympic capital with IOC, International Olympic Committee, which is established in Lausanne since 1915, but also with about 50 sports federation and institution. So Lausanne can be the world capital of the sports administration. Second axe is that Lausanne is city of education and research. Of course, with University of Lausanne, which we are today, but also with several other high schools. We have a federal technical high school and different public or private school, for example, hotel school of Lausanne, which was the first hotel school in the world and which is still famous. Third axe of promotion of the city is that we want to be a sustainable city with different projects, including public transportation, environment-friendly neighborhoods, and local and international commitments in favor of sustainability. And the fourth axe is city of culture, with dance, opera, music, but also with a very active nightlife. I know you are here to work and to work hard, but I hope you will also have some time during your stay in Lausanne to enjoy this very active nightlife. Sustainability is for us a very special subject because it's global and transversal questions which constitute a specific subject of work for us, but which is also in relation with several of our development axes. It's in relation with research and education, of course, as you can see here. It's also in relation with international sports. Today, when a city is thinking about organizing, for example, Olympic Games, the question of sustainability is at the very heart of the candidate process and the organizing process. The question is not only to know how to make the sport more sustainable, but how to use sport in order to promote sustainable development of the city. It's also a subject which interests us in relation with the international sports. So Lausanne created several years ago a city association with other Olympic cities in order to exchange experiences, practices about sustainability in relation with sport. Sustainability is also a specific subject by itself in the city with different projects that I told you, but also on an international plan. We are, for example, in Lausanne working on sustainable development questions in close relation with French-speaking city associations. Sustainability is so a global approach for defining and developing the city, also in relation with subjects which may seem, at first look, have nothing or few to do with sustainability. We in Lausanne consider your present meeting with a special interest at several levels. The first is that the question of sustainable university is an important issue. Universities all around the world are large institutions that can be examples for others, especially on the sustainability questions. The second is that sustainability is also in close relation with scientific and technical research. Science can bring us many solutions to our problems for energy, for housing, for transportation, for example, even if we know that science cannot bring us a solution to every problem. The third question is that university can help us to integrate every dimension of sustainability and sustainable development, especially environment, but also economy and social issues. Fourth question is that in an open world, we need an international approach and international exchanges in order to share our practices and examples and to exchange our solutions. We know that we need local actions, but we know also that these local actions cannot be found only on a local point of view. Universities can help us to combine these two dimensions, both local and global. And the last reason is that as students, you represent the future. Sustainability is a present problem, of course, but it's also a problem of future. Assuming the fact that this is not a reason to wait for the future before beginning to work. For all these reasons, I'm especially happy and pleased to be here and to have the opportunity to welcome you in Lausanne. I can so demonstrate our interest for your work, for your reflections, and for the involvement of the University of Lausanne in sustainability. This is a demonstration of our will to develop close cooperation with our university. We want, by these close exchanges, by this cooperation, develop new projects in order to build a new city, a more open and environment-friendly city, in one word, a sustainable city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. De Costa. And now I have the pleasure to welcome our last guest, Mr. Roch, a former director of the Federal Department of the Environment.
these technical problems. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, and dear students, I'm very pleased to be with you tonight and to have the honor to participate to the opening of your summit. And I really congratulate you to have been able to come here and to devote these days to these very important subjects. President Hatta, I just want to tell you that I was 13 years long the representative of Switzerland in all international environmental negotiations, and had during all these years the best cooperation with my Japanese colleagues, and not only on climate change, but only on biodiversity, water management. We had a beautiful conference in Kyoto, and all the environmental subjects. And I keep a strong heart to this time with my Japanese colleagues. So it's a pleasure to see you tonight here in Lausanne. I'm really pleased that you take the time of these days to look at important subjects, to open a broad view on the world. As students, you have to develop your specialties to get influence in a very specific area of activity. But it's very important that anyhow you keep this broad view over the world. And a world you want to change. I'm sure the minutes and the results of your summit will be a contribution to a change, because we need a new civilization. We need a deep change of our way of living, and you will be the main actors of this new civilization. In history, changes occurs normally too late, out of crisis. And we are nowadays living several levels of crisis. The more recent one, the big one that really occupies all our politicians nowadays is the financial crisis. That's the reason why I put these beautiful banknotes here. And at the beginning of this last crisis, 2007, 2008, I got the hope that our leaders, politicians, economists, would really have understood that we made something wrong and that we need change. And I heard a lot of time this word, change. We need change. We will change. But soon after the beginning of this crisis, this idea of change became very low in the preoccupations. Governments began by trying to save the banks with public money, the banks who were just responsible for the crisis. And after having saved these banks, to begin again with the same litany than before. We need more consumption, we need growth of the GDP, we need more revenues, more taxes, more investments. All these objectives of the past world just came in front again. And so we heard at the beginning of this crisis, big words, very little change, no change at all. One of the problems that hinder us to change is that we, when I say we, it's perhaps not all of us, but I would think especially our leaders or the main ideology of this civilization is trapped in a very narrow system which does not represent the reality or the whole reality. If you look at this diapositive, you see up on the right this note bank. This is to represent what is GDP. GDP is just a measurement of the fluxes of money, expenses, investments, and so on. It's all about money. And we measure, or we think we measure, the economical wealth with the GDP, with this instrument. But in fact, GDP is a very small part of economy. If we want that economy works, we do not just need money. We need people, we need knowledge, we need ethics, we need confidence. Many things which are not represented by money. That's the blue square. Economy is much more than GDP. Mankind is much more than economy. We do not live just from economy. If you look at what is important for people, you see that their revenue, their economic situation represent 20%, 25%. It's essential, but it's most 25% of the preoccupation. Relationship with other people, 50%. Well, health, 25%, and many other things. So it's important to understand that the wealth, the prosperity of mankind needs a sound economy, but is not just economy. And mankind is a very small part of nature. We come from nature, we totally depend on nature, and one of the absolute rules of this life is that once we go back to nature. But if we try to solve the crisis we are living now just by dealing with this small red square, we will never find the solutions. And even those, and I am part of these people, who pretend we should decrease, we should have a degrowth to avoid certain ecological problems. I will come back to that. They cannot succeed if they stay in the same very narrow system. Because if you decrease just in this system, GDP, then you have unemployment. You have a lot of problems, despair of people, and just having this alternative growth or degrowth or decrease within GDP, which we are doing now. Our politicians, our economists are just thinking about that. They never speak about nature or about other aspects of economy. We will never find the solutions. And that's the reason why we are not moving forward in this political world nowadays. In this world, the highest moral, philosophical values are consumption, competition, domination. And these values are raised at the level of civic virtues. It's almost a catechism, which is every day repeated by politicians, by economists, by publicity, even by television. All people are always pushed to consume more and more, as if it were the only interest in this life. We can try to change that. But the only level where we are active nowadays is almost only green technology. We try to improve the efficiency of technology to consume less resources, to produce more with less, which is a good thing, certainly a good perspective. That was the subject of the last Rio summit. But how poor it is. If you see the Agenda 21, Rio 92, which really dealt with all aspects of life. And this very narrow subject of Rio plus 20, I have the impression we really regressed in the awareness of our environmental and social development situation. especially because even if we may make progress in technology, and we can, for example, drive more with less oil, or produce more food with less entrance, or something like this, which is a good step. But because we are in the philosophy, in the ideology of growth, every progress is immediately overshot by new consumptions, new artificial, in most cases, needs. And we are not really improving the situation. So we have to look after other things than just technologies. Already, if we stay in economic, we should at least look at macroeconomic conditions, framework conditions to improve the quality of life, the prosperity of people, and not just growth. If you see, I've just brought one image to an ant. If you look at these beautiful animals, I love ants, and especially because they are more important ecologically than mankind. The weight of ants on the world is greater, is bigger than the weight of mankind. Billions and billions and billions of ants. They are eating much more than we are eating. They are moving things much more. They are building highways, big houses, everything. They never destroy nature. Everything they are doing is fully integrated into nature. One example that nature gives us as a model how we could try to live on this earth in the best conditions, but without destroying it. So we have to look for other macroeconomic conditions. That was for the financial economic crisis, but we have much more serious an ecological crisis, which you know well because you are specialists of that. But it's very important to look at this because nowadays, who is talking about the ecological crisis? We had recently the election of the French president, and we have now the process of election of the US president. Very important people. Do you hear them once speak about ecology, about the limits of the planet, about the ecological crisis? Never, never, never. So it shows that we are not putting priorities at the right place. At the latest, in 1972, we had the Club of Rome, the report Meadows, who really alarmed about the limits to growth. After that, a lot of studies. The Global Ecosystem Assessment, a study which shows that 60% of all ecosystems are overexploited. The Living Planet Index, showing that species are in the process of reduction. Some disappear, many others are reducing the quantity of their plants and animals. And this measurement of our activity, the ecological footprint, which is much better than the GDP as a measurement of the situation of our societies. And we see with the ecological footprint that we are already overstepped the capacity of our planet to produce what we consume. For the at present world, it's about 1.5 planets we would need. But if all people would like to live as Swiss people, for example, we would need 3 planets, or 7 planets to live at the level of the US people. Already nowadays, we are too far. And we know that. We know it scientifically, but does not interest very much politicians. In addition to that, we also have a social crisis, because the progress we could make with technologies, with growth, could really improve the life of some people, but largely not of all. And many of people are living nowadays in a worse situation than 20 years ago. I just read some words of Tim Jackson. He wrote a big report on prosperity without growth, a beautiful paper if you have opportunity to look at this. He said this: growth has delivered its benefits at best unequally. A fifth of the world's population earns just 2% of global income. Inequality is higher in the OECD nations than it was 20 years ago. And while the rich got richer, middle-class incomes in Western countries were stagnant in real terms long before the recession. Far from raising the living standard for those who most needed it, growth let much of the world's population down. Wealth trickled up to the lucky few. And this situation makes many people really uncomfortable with their life, despairing and losing the sense of life. Unemployment, lot of sense, flight into consumption, drugs, incivility, criminality. All these phenomena we have also in the night in Lausanne at 5 o'clock in the morning are also a consequence of these inequalities produced by this ideology of growth. So I think all these crises are linked to a moral or an ethical crisis. We are fleeing in consumption because our materialistic way of living and way of thinking is profoundly unsatisfactory. We are fleeing into consumption, overconsumption, to try to compensate for internal emptiness. If we want to rebalance humankind with the planet, with nature, we are to find again a balance in ourselves between our rational part and our animal part, between our materialistic needs and our spiritual or philosophical needs. We have to look after our way of living, which is not composed only of money and work, but of many, much more important things. Our destiny is not based on competition, domination, possession. We will realize ourselves and really reconcile with nature in harmony with the diversity within humanity and diversity of nature. This diversity is the richness of our lives, and it is in the exchange with the different, with the other, that we are rich, innerly rich. So we really have to find a new way of living, but it is... Attendez, voilà, tout est arrêté. Voilà. That expresses very well that we have to change not only superficially but very profoundly our way of living. Because our rational and scientific civilization should have prevented us against this destruction of nature, because it is a long time we know that our way of living is destroying the basis of our own future. We know that scientifically, with demonstrations and rationally, and we pretend to be rational human beings. But we are certainly, but not only that. We also live on the basis of the values we believe in. And there are a lot of these values, but I think a few of them should really be able to unify us. These values, for me, we could call them new or old values, perhaps. The first one is respect. Respect the other. Respect the difference. Respect nature. Humility. We are a small, small, small dust in the whole universe, in the whole history. And important. Every one of us is very important, unique. But you are a very, very small part of the whole. Sobriety. Really take pleasure of life. It's not a question of be deprived, but take pleasure, but with sobriety, not taking everything from, not with greed. Compassion, take care of the other human beings, of nature. And look for harmony and cooperation. I don't read such words in the political programs or parties. Never. Seems to me the most important things. I'm convinced that without a moral transformation, a spiritual rebirth, we have no chance to change enough to reverse the course of things. To reverse the course of our destructive civilization and to begin a transition into a new, humane, ecological, and harmonious and prosperous civilization. You are students. You will have to specialize yourselves in the different matters you choose. But never forget to cultivate the totality of your personality, of your mind, in relation with the totality of nature. And the fact that you participate to this summit gives me confidence that that's exactly the way you are choosing, and I really am happy about that. Because you will do it, but you will be also the actors of this new civilization. And I really wish you a full success in that endeavor. Thank you for your attention and have a good week.